I don't know about you guys, but when I read this spell balance audit dev diary that was written regarding all these changes that we've seen in Testrom and kind of where King's Isle is going with changing the game and rebalancing pretty much the whole game, it got me excited because it really shows that King's Isle cares about creating future content and creating stat changes and gear changes and new spells and all this stuff that will actually matter for our wizards in the future. So it got me excited for the future because I'm glad that King's Isle is doing this. I've been telling you guys for a long time that this was necessary, it was going to happen, and this is the first step. We had a bunch of spells change in Testrom, and I didn't even cover the last round of spell changes because that would have been my fourth video going over that, and I wasn't sure if people wanted to see yet another video of it. And honestly, I didn't really have too much time to make yet another video on all that stuff. But yeah, I think I'm going to stop on making those. I'm just going to wait until it comes to Live Realm. But yeah, they went through all these spell changes. They got constant feedback from fans, from, mostly on Twitter. I mean, most of the feedback is coming from Twitter. And I think they watched people's streams and people's YouTube videos. I'm hoping to get feedback as well. But lots of feedback went into this. And they finally came to where they are with the spell changes on Testrom right now. Testrom's down, but I think where they're at is what they're going to go with to Live Realm. They might make a few other changes, but it seems like they settled on values for a lot of the spells, and they changed so many spells. They really focused on rank 8 plus spells and shadow spells, but they're going to be changing spells that are, under rank 8. They changed rank 7 spells as well, like they created new rank 7 spells. They're also going to be focusing on the lower rank spells because they said some of the spells they might even buff some of the lower rank spells because they don't fit the damage curve. So they really talk about the damage per pip of each school, and I wanted to look at this because it's really interesting to see the actual numbers. Yes, you could have calculated this in the past, but it didn't really make as much sense as it does now because they're really trying to keep it consistent. So I'm going to put up on the screen their little chart for the damage per pip of each school. And obviously, Ice and Life are going to be the lowest. They're actually tied. So Ice and Life have the same damage per pip, and it's going to be like that no matter what spell you look at. It should be consistent to these values, except if there's utility involved. And I want to talk about utility because that's something that's really interesting at how they looked at it. So we'll get to that. But yeah, here's the chart. Ice and Life are at the bottom at 83 with normal pips. Shadow pips is a little bit more. That's just how shadow pips work. And balance is going to be the next one. Actually, balance and death are tied. So balance and death, the next two schools. Myth up a little bit from those two, and then fire is up a lot from myth, and then storm is up, even more from fire. So there's actually a big difference between fire and storm in terms of their damage per pip, and then there's a decent damage between the shadow pips for fire and storm. But yeah, that gives you a good idea of where all the schools are. And honestly, Ice, Life, Balance, and Death are pretty close. Like, they're all really close in terms of their damage. Myth, for the longest time, was not the third best hitting school. It really wasn't. Like, Mystic was good. Mystic was kind of on par with this, but a lot of Myth's other spells were not. And they finally, brought Myth up to where it should be as the third hardest hitting school. And that's where it is. Myth should be the hardest hitting spirit school. And it finally is. So there we go. But yeah, they finally just, across the board, they made it more consistent. So another thing that the devs really had to look at during the spell audit was the utility of spells. And they changed utility of spells. They reduced damage of a bunch of spells that had utility because it was kind of tough to look at a spell that has a certain amount of damage for a certain amount of pips, but also has a utility on top of it, and decide what its real damage should be. So they kind of had to take utility as like being an extra pip or something. Like a stun was at least an extra pip, maybe 2 extra pips or something. And they really had to look at that and kind of factor that in to their calculations. So I can understand where the difficulty came in when they had crazy powerful utility like Ifrit, and they had to decide where its damage should be. So obviously that negative 90 had to come down so that Ifrit's damage could remain fairly, close to what it was. Another tough spell that had a bunch of utility that was an AoE was Sirens that they had to change because Sirens removed blades, it put up a smoke screen, it hit for mass damage for 9 pips. It was just crazy, and I agree with that. It was a crazy spell, but even with Sirens being that good, Bugs was still better. People still use Bugs more because you don't want to wait till 9 pips. Usually you get a Shadow Pip before 9, or if you hit 9 pips and you get a Shadow Pip that turn, then you would just use Bugs because Bugs is doing way more damage. So it made sense for the Shadow Pips spells to have their damage reduced, and it also made sense for these crazy utility spells to either reduce their utility or be brought down in damage. So everything, their main goal is to try to remain that consistency as as your wizard levels up, because there was crazy power spikes in this game. Everyone knew that Darkmoor broke the game in so many ways, and this is the first time that's actually been changed to kind of rebalance what happened with Darkmoor. And the thing is, yes, they're rebalancing the spells, but they are not rebalancing the stats yet. Because Darkmoor not only brought us the most powerful spells in the entire game, with shadow spells, with the AoE shadow spells that were crazy, and some of them, even the non-AoE shadow spells were still crazy. They still did so much damage. But, Darkmoor just kind of set the bar for where shadow spells should be, where gear should be from level 100 plus. And the game devs just had to follow that, because if they didn't, then players wouldn't care. If they didn't match Darkmoor gear or go beyond it, then players just would not use that gear, and that's what we saw. Players stopped upgrading their robe for 30 levels. It just happened, because why would you want to reduce your stats? The best example of this is the Storm Darkmoor robe, because it pretty much gives you 100% accuracy just from the robe itself. With that robe and normal storm spells of 70%, the robe gives you 25%. You're at 95. So it basically nullifies Storm's chance to fizzle. You put on an extra 5% accuracy and you're never going to fizzle on a normal spell. And that's just how it was. So how can you get better than 100% accuracy? You don't. You don't give more than 25% accuracy on a robe because it's already broken enough. So the game was starting to cap out at that point, and we're going to see gear change. Gear is going to change. I don't know how it's going to change. I don't know if they're just going to do ratings for a lot of the percentages. What if they do the rating on accuracy and that makes us have a chance to fizzle at higher levels? I wonder how that would work. Like, that would be kind of crazy. They would make accuracy no longer a percent, just like they're planning on doing resist is no longer a percent, so that the schools that are dealing the highest damage, Storm and Fire, maybe have a higher chance to fizzle. That would be interesting. I'm wondering if you could even get 100% accuracy at that point if they make this a rating. So I'm wondering for the stat changes if they are just going to make all these a rating so that it doesn't go out of control, or if they're actually going to change gear itself. Because in the spell audit dev diary, Rapid says that the two most broken, sets of gear were Darkmoor gear, makes sense, and Jade gear. Jade gear, of course, this is something I don't know what happened at level 100, but the devs just decided level 100, we're going all out. And they gave us crazy things. This is just something that the devs from that point on had to deal with, because they put this gear in the game and all players were using it because it's the best, and that was it. So we had crazy Darkmoor gear. Jade gear, I've been using Jade gear since level 100, and it's all people use. After seeing the spell audit and kind of going through it, following the process, I can tell that the devs really want the game to succeed in the future. This is what it's for. They don't want to just nerf your spell because they hate you. They don't want to nerf gnomes because they hate life wizards, and they don't want life wizards to be able to double dispel their opponent anymore. That's not really what they're out for. They're trying to maintain the balance of the game, maintain the curve as you level up so that it's more consistent, and it makes sense. And every school has a spell, an AoE at rank 7 that they can use. They're reducing the mob health. I haven't even talked about that yet, but yeah, they're reducing mob health by at least 20%. Celestia and above, mobs are going to have less health. They also reduced health of other enemies that aren't past Celestia. They reduced Malister in Dragonspire's health. So other bosses might have less health. So as it stands right now, when this update comes out, to Live Realm, our wizards are going to be pretty powerful. You might not think that because you're like, oh, but our spells got reduced in damage. But our gear is still crazy. I can still get 175% damage on my Storm with 100% critical. So a lot of my spells didn't change. You know, Tempest didn't change. Glowbugs is still good. And they actually changed Sirens to be a bigger range. So Sirens is still fine for PvE. So our wizards are actually going to be pretty strong once this comes to Live Realm. And things might actually be easier. Normal fights, mob fights will probably be easier. So if Test Realm comes back up next week and it's still going, I may check out the mob health reduction on the actual Test Realm because, you know, it's down for the weekend, so I can't check it out right now. But I might do that in a video. If not, then I'll just wait for Live Realm and we'll check it out. I'm guessing that they're getting to the end of this Test Realm. And honestly, it was one of the most exciting Test Realms we've had. I know there's no new world or anything which people love, but just the changes that they've made to the game, for me, make it exciting because I want the game to have a future. You know, I don't think anyone really wants the game to die, right? So we want there to be updates. We want there to be level increases. I definitely want to have new gear. You know, I want gear to be better than the Jade gear that I've been using since level 100. I want there to be better gear than the Darkmoor robe I've been using on my Storm since level 100. And I'm glad they put out this spell audit because it really gives a clear picture of where they're going. So I have to appreciate the devs for that. But that is going to be it for me on this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it kind of explained everything, what's going on with this test run, because it was a cool test run. I'm guessing it's going to end next week unless they have some more things that they're really looking at specifically. But I think that's going to be it for this test run. I know that there's a new world that's not been teased yet, but there's been talk of it. There's been leaks of it. I'm not going to talk about it on my videos, but new worlds are being created, and that's exciting. There's going to be a level cap. I'm guessing this year. Like, I'm guessing there's going to be a fall world update this year, and that's exciting. That's why they're doing these audits right now, because the new world is coming. We're going to get level 140. I'm guessing this fall. So that's exciting, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that once Test Realm comes to live. Hopefully they reveal that. But that is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos. You guys have been crazy on my videos recently. Like, this Test Realm has been insane for you guys watching. So many people tuning in. So if you guys are here, if you guys are watching, please leave a like on my videos if you enjoyed them, if you made it all the way through. Really appreciate it. Let's try to go for 1,500 likes on this video. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. Thanks for subbing. We're actually almost at 180,000 subscribers. But thank you guys again. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.